you can't tell the story of the last 5 years without talking about the issues that brought us up to Missouri v. Biden. And you can't tell the story of Missouri v. Biden without talking to Andrew Bailey. He's the Attorney General for the state of Missouri. He's with us right now. Thank you for being with us, Attorney General. We appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on and for covering this truly, important story of enormous magnitude.
Yeah, I want you to kind of lay the groundwork for not the legalese behind it, because I was just telling Brad, I have to, when it comes to Supreme Courts and appellate court cases and blah, 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 I get bogged down because I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand all the legalese behind it. But what I do understand is censorship. And I think there's a lot of people coming out of the COVID times where they had honest questions. They just wanted to know what was going on. And we saw censorship on a broad level, and it didn't just adhere to the COVID concerns. What are you addressing in Missouri v. Biden, and why is it so important to the First Amendment and the future of this country?
Well, we're fighting to protect our right to free speech. We've gone to court numerous times. The score right now is Missouri 3, Biden 0, and we're heading for the Super Bowl because we're going to the United States Supreme Court. We're not going to stop fighting to protect our right, our First Amendment right to free speech. And so that's what this is all about.
So the concerns that were brought up, we found out that the administration was making some contacts with some of the social media outlets, and they were doing it for their own personal benefit. What can you tell us about what was taking place and why this was such an issue for you to bring to the courts?
Everyone will remember during COVID that there were suddenly people being kicked off of big tech social media platforms or shadow banned or de-emphasized, or their friends would say, hey, we don't see you on there anymore. Well, that was happening because the federal government was demanding that it happen. It was censorship of the highest order. We've uncovered a vast censorship enterprise from the federal government at the very top level of the White House across a spectrum of bureaucratic agencies intended to target conservative speech for censorship on big tech. The government demanded that certain posts be taken down. The government demanded that big tech change its terms of service. The government demanded that big tech change its censorship algorithms. And big tech did that at the demand of the federal government. And thus, the censorship that's going on big tech is because the government made it happen. And the government is not allowed to violate the Constitution through a third party. The government would be prohibited from doing this directly. So they're also prohibited from doing it through big tech as a third party.
So we're speaking with the Attorney General for the state of Missouri about Missouri v. Biden. And, I think to myself about where we've been and how there were certain things you could say on social media, certain things you couldn't. And there were people who were being censored on social media who didn't have huge audiences or platforms. They just said the wrong things. And then there were other people who had really good experience, like medical professionals, that they were just saying the wrong thing according to the powers that be in the American government, and they were quieted. I want you to take us from where we were in COVID, but now let's look at this moment in time right now. It's October 24th of 2023, and we are watching with bated breath every minute that passes what's going on in the Middle East. Information is currency right now, and on social media, that is how we exchange information. If Missouri v. Biden doesn't go through, it really frightens me to think about how the American people could be so grossly misled about what's going on in our world right now through government overreach in our social media platforms.
Yeah, a couple of points to make here. Number one, we can show you the email traffic from the White House to big tech in February, March, April, May of 2021 after Biden had taken office, where they're saying, take down that Tucker Carlson video, shadow ban anyone who's questioning whether vaccines work, take down that Tommy Lahren post. So they're targeting individual specific instances of speech. But then we can also show you through the other discovery that we've obtained in the lawsuit that the censorship enterprise grew so quickly, they wanted to censor so much speech that the government had to develop a new bureaucratic enterprise in order to manage the censorship demands that they were placing on big tech. And so they started they put it in the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency within the Department of Homeland Security. So this is an agency designed to protect roads, bridges, and computer databases. But the director says, well, there's also cognitive infrastructure. So they're dedicated explicitly to controlling what you say, think, and hear. I mean, it's Orwellian. And what we know is that the censorship has extended beyond COVID issues, and the harm persists today. It wasn't a once-in-time thing. Biden used the national emergency to violate our constitutional rights, but what they're doing now is saying, well, any emergency justifies their ability to violate our rights. They think they can control they think the government should control what we can and can't say, think, and hear. And the harm is ongoing because people are self-censoring. To your point, there are people now who won't get on social media and talk about Donald Trump, who won't talk about COVID, who won't talk about election integrity, because they're concerned about being kicked off of these big tech social media platforms, which are essential to how they communicate with their friends and relatives. And so the speech that was censored was exclusively conservative. This was viewpoint discrimination in violation of the First Amendment. But to your point also, it was all truthful speech. Every instance of censorship as it related to COVID ended up being true. And so the American public was deprived of information necessary upon which to make good personal healthcare decisions. We're rolling into an election cycle. That's why this case is so important, is to continue to fight to build a wall of separation between tech and state to protect our election integrity so we can have free, fair, and open political debate absent government censorship as we move into an election cycle.
I think that it's a key part of this process because we know, like I said, we know where we've been, but we don't know where we're going. And I think there are a lot of people out there, we're speaking with the Attorney General of the state of Missouri, Andrew Bailey, that would say, Annie, there are a lot of people sharing some very dangerous things during COVID and telling people to take this, that, and the other thing, and it could be harmful to them. It could have great consequences. So there's a lot of fear that goes out there that people are going to say the wrong things. How do it, at least in the structure of government that we, at least for now, still have in this country with the Constitution reigning supreme, how do you fear this Orwellian way of thinking? How do people take advantage against the American people if Missouri v. Biden isn't successful?
Well, again, Missouri v. Biden is all about building a wall of separation between tech and state to protect our right to free speech. The purpose of the Constitution is to protect us from the government, and the purpose of the government is to protect our rights. But what we've seen time and time again from Joe Biden, and this is just yet another example, is that Biden will weaponize the federal government to attack our rights. And certainly we've demonstrated that in court. We've proven our case in court. That's why we got the nationwide injunction. That's why it's been affirmed twice at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and ultimately why the United States Supreme Court took the case. But yeah, I mean, look, if the government gets to control what we can and can't talk about, there's no limiting principle. There's nothing to stop them from silencing us on any number of topics. And again, COVID was just the Trojan horse that got the enemy behind the gates. That's the excuse they use. But what excuse will they use next? That, oh, well, hey, you can't talk about your right to keep and bear arms guaranteed by the Second Amendment because firearms are dangerous, and so they'll want to stop us from talking about that or kick any kind of pro-Second Amendment group off of big tech, or for people who are religious. What about Christians? You can't talk about the Bible on big tech. That's not truthful, according to President Biden. And so, we get into this weird world which, again, emphasizes the whole point of the timeless principle of freedom codified in the First Amendment right to free speech.
All right. So we know that this is going to the Supreme Court, and you're going to be there, and you're going to be arguing on behalf of the American people. And I want to know, what's the timeline? What can people who are listening right now expect to happen, and when can they expect it?
Well, again, we're encouraged that we're going to the Super Bowl in the fight for free speech to defend this injunction, to fight for our rights to free speech to the United States Supreme Court. We hope that we will have the case briefed and argued close to the end of the year, beginning of next year. And then we would anticipate that the court would issue a ruling probably by late spring, early summer. But again, this is imperative that we move with all due haste, because we've got to continue to build that wall of separation between tech and state to protect our election integrity so that we can have free, fair, and open political debate absent government censorship. Biden knows he can't win the argument on the merits, so he has to silence any voice in opposition. He's done it before. He'll do it again. That's what we're fighting to defeat.
Well, we are grateful that you're fighting on behalf of Missourians. Myself as an Illinoisan, I know that this has great implications across the country, and you continue the fight. We appreciate your time today, and we look forward to hearing updates from you as the story progresses.
Hey, thank you. All the best to you and your listeners.
Yeah, you as well. Attorney General for the state of Missouri, Andrew Bailey, with us there. You can follow him on Twitter at AG Andrew Bailey, and follow this case as it continues to go. He's doing a lot of wonderful things, and been able to defend the American people against an overreaching, far-reaching administration in the Biden administration. And it's good to see his success so far. We need it to happen again.